Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there, and welcome to the show. Lynn Cullen Live. Some days I feel more live than others. The show sometimes seems like a bit of a misnomer, but not today. I definitely do feel alive today. We got a good show for you. We'll be joined in a half hour by Jennifer Murtazashvili, who is the director of Pitt Center for Governance and Markets. Excuse me. And she is the one who has put together this program of volunteers desperately trying to get Afghans who worked for the government in some way, help the Americans to get the paperwork necessary to get out. So she will be joining us later to talk about that effort. They are being inundated by calls for help from Afghanistan. The other big story is the resurgence, of course, of COVID-19 and the continuing recalcitrance and just extraordinary lack of concern for human life under a measure of their control of some Republican governors. Just astonishing. If you look at, the numbers that are coming out now, you look where the trouble lies mostly, although of course it's spreading all over the place. Allegheny County now is in a high level of spread, and you should be masking again in indoor places if you're vaccinated or not. But if you look at just the ICUs in some states, and they all have Republican governors, the states I'm about to mention, their ICUs are essentially full in the entire state. So whether somebody is in need of critical care for heart conditions, any other illness, disease, COVID is just one possibility of you ending up in an ICU, of course. And yet in Alabama, there's not a bed in the entire state. And in Florida, in Georgia, in Mississippi, and in Texas, more than 90% of all ICU beds are already taken. Now, these numbers are from 24 hours ago. For all I know, they're all up to capacity at this point, because the trend, as you know, is nothing but going in the wrong direction. It's going up. Then, in the midst of all of this, I see, and I'm going to quote from a story in the New York Times today, which I think is a little behind the curve, but I don't know. The headline is U.S. to recommend booster shots for most Americans after 8 months. Now, yes, I heard that yesterday. I also heard that somebody I know already got a booster shot yesterday. Had an appointment, 3 p.m., CVS. And I am really confused because the New York Times says right here in the first paragraph, that third shots could be offered as early as the third week of September. Well, that's interesting because it's the third week of August. And as I said, someone I know already has gotten a booster shot. The article goes on to say the new policy, this booster shot, will depend on Food and Drug Administration authorization of these additional shots. But as I said, I know somebody in Pittsburgh who got the shot at a CVS yesterday. Later on in this article, it says the first boosters would probably go to nursing home residents. I assure you, this person I know is not a nursing home resident. Healthcare workers, he's not a healthcare worker. Emergency workers, he's not an emergency worker. Likely then, those groups would be followed by other older people. This person is younger than me. And then by the general population. So I want to know what the hell's going on here. Is this another botch, totally screwed up? All I know is that someone I know got a third shot of Pfizer at a CVS on Center Avenue in Oakland yesterday. No problem. So is this article in the New York Times, the paper of record, just wrong? Or has CVS jumped the gun? And aside from all of that, are we going to see the same kind of what I think of as an unseemly rush by people to get these shots? We know there are enough to go around. The government is stockpiling 100 million doses, and they've ordered more that are due in September. And all of this, of course, does not even begin to address the ethical issue. And what would that be? The ethical issue that fewer than 15% of the entire population of this planet has been vaccinated at all. And so there's something that makes me really queasy about Americans who already have 2 shots in their system, like I'm assuming most of you and me, and now we're able to get a third. Evidence suggests that, in fact, Pfizer especially does begin to lose efficacy within after 6 months. And this is all from, one study essentially from Israel. But as we've learned with this COVID, this particular novel virus, things change rapidly, and we're learning as we go. The scientists are learning as they go. Governments have to respond to new information and new realities on the fly. And so the sense that I have of, again, confusion, reading an article from the paper of record telling me that the Food and Drug Administration has to sign off on this, and the soonest we could be seeing these booster shots is in a month, and that the first people who will be getting them, like the initial shots, would be, of course, nursing home residents, and first responders, and immunocompromised, whatever, people who are most at risk, not the general population. And yet I know that someone in the general population, no problem at all, got a third shot yesterday right here at a CVS in Oakland. So you tell me what's going on. And you tell me what the right thing to do. Gigi asked, did your friend give the pharmacy the impression that this was his first shot? No. No. And in fact, he showed, my understanding is he showed them his card. They knew full well he was coming in for a third shot. His wife, who tried to get one as well, was told that because her two first shots were not Pfizer, which is what this CVS was dealing in, but was in fact Moderna, she would have to go to another CVS, and she was given the address of another CVS that had Moderna, and she was able to make a reservation for her third dose, I believe tomorrow. So what the hell can I mean, I don't like this. This strikes me as line jumping again, and I don't like it. And I'm anxious myself to get this third shot, even with the moral and ethical issues I raised, which are damning, really. Gigi says, I imagine this is going to be a botched rollout once again. I do so wish we could work on getting the world vaccinated, along with the reluctant fools in this country. Well, I had another friend over yesterday. He is a doctor, and I asked him about this, and he suggested that yeah, you probably can get these third doses now. And he said he figures that any vaccine going into anybody is in some small way helping to deny the virus of a home. So he was less inclined to be judgmental than I. As the Pope said yesterday, he sees getting a vaccine as an act of love. But so here we are in the United States. Aren't we a lucky bunch? Are we better people? Are we more deserving? Absolutely not. We're just lucky by accident of birth and geography. And we do know that our government is making vaccine available to poorer nations. But the fact is that wealthy nations like ours are first taking care of their own. And again, this is how nations generally act. That's the idea of a governing body like this. What is the first thing the government is tasked with? And that is securing its nation and its people. So it's hard for me to, squawk and scream about the ethical issue here when I know that a politician that runs a country and a government would be destroyed if he or she did not first take care of the people he has the power to do. The responsibility, I think, is how some would see it, to take care of. That there's no actual responsibility for people anywhere other than this country. But as an individual, I must say that I'm queasy. We've got some callers I just saw, excuse me. So let's get to the phones. Hello, go ahead, please.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hey, that Dr. Goop that was on yesterday, and he said there's no alarm to get a booster shot. He said that study in Israel, that's just saying people were positive. It's mostly people who are unvaccinated, and he says that the CDCs are doing not a good thing by alarming people like this. He said probably in 8 months to a year might need a booster, but he didn't see where we had to get one. So I'm going by what he says. Because I think that many shots in that short a time is not good for your body. I do believe that. So, being in the medical field years ago and used to get those shots of that. So.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. But that's what I'm saying. It's another botched rollout.
I think
here. None of us know.
Really, if you're a sickly person, there's a chance you might die from it. Yeah. You could die from the flu too. So I'm not, worried too much. I do think maybe someday in the future we'll have to get one, but I think we're good to go now. What I'm reading and stuff. That's my opinion. So whatever.
Okay.
Well, you know what my opinion is good for. Nothing.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Thank you, doctor. Okay. All right. Bye-bye. Bye. We have another call. Hello.
Hey, Lynn, it's Mike in USC.
Hey, hi.
Sorry to call 2 days in a row, but it's only line jumping if there's a line. They can't give them away. So I wouldn't do it, not because there's a line ahead of me, but because, as the previous caller mentioned, the science is yet to be determined. They're thinking, from what I've read, that 8 months out for Pfizer people, a booster shot will be recommended. But at that point, if CVS has them, why would I have to wait for people in nursing homes to get it first if CVS has the shot? There's only a line. It's only line jumping if there's a line.
That's a good point.
And
but
I
it's
do
CVS,
feel bad that.
Yep. Okay.
If
Go
CVS
ahead.
What?
I don't know. Are they following are there rules that any of these people have to follow? I mean,
No.
Is the New York Times wrong that there has to be a FDA authorization before this can go to the third shot? If that's true, then CVS is flouting the FDA here.
Well, if I was your friend's insurance company, I'd be waiting 30 days from now to see if they got billed for that shot. Because when you go to CVS, they ask you for your insurance. And the insurance has been approved for 1 and 2 shots. If the FDA didn't come out and say there's a third shot you should take, I bet the insurance isn't going to pay it for it. But CVS makes their money if they put it in my arm or if they put it in an 11-and-a-half-year-old's arm. A friend of mine just had her son, who's 11-and-a-half, get the vaccine. You can just walk up. You don't have to show ID, right? You just walk in, or you don't have to show a proof of age. You walk in, give them your card, because I got mine too at CVS. You walk in, give them your card. They take your online. They take your insurance information. You show up. You show your card again, and they give you the shot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So I guess if you want it, go get it. Now, the thing is, they're saying after 8 months, Now, the person I know who got the shot it's after 6 months, but he decided, what the hell? So we're all like just figuring this out on our own again.
Or there's a protocol, and the protocol, people are going to ignore that protocol and do what they are afraid or do what they think is best. Like your previous caller said, and like I say, I'm following the CDC's protocol. And when they say 8 months out, I'll count back from April and get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I'm afraid I'm going to grow a third tit if I get it, but because, it's the protocol. They know more than me. And it's weird, like we were talking about yesterday with the humility. These people know more than I do. So
yeah, they do.
Listen to that.
All right. Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm going to follow. The doctor who I talked to yesterday said he follows the doctor's advice. He said, I'm a good doctor. I follow the medical advice. If they're telling me in 8 months I should get a booster, I'm going to get a booster.
Yeah, me too. And that brings up another point that I had with a friend of mine who went to her doctor and she said, should I get the vaccine? And I said, you asked the doctor the wrong question. My friend said, what do you mean? I said, you should have asked the doctor, did you get the vaccine? Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. And I may change my mind. I may be
of course.
Picking up something and then say, oh, what the hell?
Right. Right. Exactly right. I probably just created a run on the CBS. Whatever. You do have to have an appointment, apparently. That's what I was told. You can't just
you have to go online.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to go online.
Yeah.
For now.
All right. Okay. Jeez. Bye. Bye. Dear Lord in heaven. Henry says you only need to walk into your shot provider and tell them you're obese. Yeah, but what if you're not? I see what you're saying. And you get the booster. The CDC recommends a booster for high-risk individuals. Obesity was good enough as a risk factor before. Yeah, you could say you're a smoker, I guess. A little bit of the Wild West going on here. And Aaron, Aaron, you're going by the book here. The immunocompromised. That's what I had read. That happened a few days ago, that the dispensers pretty much go on the honor system. The general public will be authorized in the coming weeks, with preference going to the groups you listed. There is so much vaccine available that it will pretty much be unrestricted. Sure. Well, in my professional role, I have already secured the supplies to prepare to give the boosters. Oh, well, can I come to you? So there you have it. Whatever. Just saying. For all you people who like to be first, it's possible. That's what I learned yesterday. For all you early adopters, I tend to be a rule follower when it comes to this stuff, and so I will lay back for a while, I think. I don't know. None of us do. Yeah, so you got, Governor Abbott in Texas. Now he's positive. He, of course, while, doing everything he can to kill as many Texans as he possibly can, was himself vaccinated. And he was tested every day. He's so far ahead in terms of getting care. Testing every day. So the test, immediately after testing positive, he gets, the antibodies, the Regeneron, whatever those things are. You, me, not so much. But this is the guy who has issued, mandate saying you can't, local officials cannot mandate masks. School districts cannot mandate masks. He, like DeSantis, it's just these people are so repulsive. And Barbara sent me this. Speaking of how repulsive these people are, DeSantis in Florida has been, way out there discouraging vaccines, discouraging mask wearing, making it threatening to punish school districts that do, making it almost impossible for any of these smaller governmental agencies to try to protect their people. And instead, he has started opening up these facilities for people who have it. It's like he is willing to let people get it and then immediately treat them to use this Regeneron product. This, why am I blanking on the COVID antibody thing? Monoclonal antibodies, right? And that seems real monoclonal. I'll get it. Monoclonal antibody, which once you get it, it's what Trump got. And, it has shown that it really can tamp down the severity of the illness. But why would a governor say to his people, don't bother about getting it? It's just once you get it, we'll help you get the monoclonal antibodies, because that's what DeSantis is doing in Florida. He's opened up all these big clinics where you can go to get it once you got COVID. Well, guess what? The person who is the second largest investor in Regeneron happens to be a billionaire. Of course, he would be. And he also happens to be, his name is Ken Griffin. He also happens to be Ron DeSantis's number one political donor. So this guy, Ken Griffin, who is already a billionaire and who makes billions more from Regeneron, monoclonal antibodies, is the largest donor to Ron DeSantis. How repulsive is that? My God. My God. So, and yeah, worst human beings in the world. Worst human beings in the world. Ron DeSantis. Governor Abbott of the great state of Texas, who we can be assured will recover from this virus with probably no problems at all, since he has gotten from day one the greatest treatment. Treatment, first of all, to avoid getting it, and then once he did get it, immediate treatment. How is it that the people of these states don't react to this incredible hypocrisy and chicanery like I am reacting to it? How do they not throw these guys out? I know perhaps they are not aware, right? They're listening to the wrong news. Okay. I got to tell you, the other huge story now, of course, as I said at the beginning of the show, is our chaotic, to say the least, withdrawal from Afghanistan after this 20-year misadventure. And we all have seen the pictures of desperate, terrified people. And we know that the pictures we are seeing are just a small snapshot of the reality of the fear and desperation in that country, of people too afraid, women especially too afraid to even leave their homes or be seen. I was shocked when I heard that there was something going on at the University of Pittsburgh, 7,000 miles away, that was an effort to help some of these desperate people get out. Now, what could that possibly be? Well, the woman whose idea it was to help is Jennifer Murtazashvili. And she is the director of Pitt's Center for Governance and Markets. And she joins us now. And I have so many questions of her, I'm not sure where to start. Jennifer, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. First of all, you're the director of something called Pitt Center for Governance and Markets. That doesn't seem to have anything to do with helping desperate people get out of Afghanistan. Where did you explain your idea and what it is you're doing?
So, the center that we have, we study self-governing, bottom-up governance solutions that communities come up with all over the world. And the inspiration for this center came from my many years of work in Afghanistan. And I have been working in Afghanistan. I first went in 2005. And before that, I lived in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan, for 5 years. I was a Peace Corps volunteer, and then I worked for the U.S. government, the U.S. Agency for International Development, for 3 years. And I was working in the U.S. Embassy there on 9/11. And it was actually part of the first humanitarian effort to get aid into Afghanistan on 9/11. So the past 15 years, really, I've been focused almost solely on Afghanistan. I speak languages, done extensive field research. I've written 2 books on the country, working on a third. So the approach of our center, and the first book that I wrote, was trying to understand how communities govern themselves when states can't or won't. And I spent a lot of time in rural Afghanistan interviewing people, trying to understand how the complex rules of their traditional system of governance, the relationship with the state, so much creativity, so much inspiration that I drew from that experience. So I continue to work on Afghanistan in my own research. Our center does a lot of different things. But when this about August 2nd, the State Department announced this P2 visa program, which expanded the number of people who are eligible for visas to come to the United States. First, it was just military translators. Then they expanded it to researchers and people working on U.S. government projects, development projects, journalists, and so forth. And that's really the people who I knew best. So my email and direct messages just blew up with people asking for help for one specific thing. They worked for a U.S. government organization, and they needed that organization to give them a letter of support saying that they worked for them at some point. And they cannot apply for asylum unless they have this letter. And believe it or not, getting this letter is not easy. And the people who we're dealing with, these Afghans, are very well educated. They have been the biggest supporters of the U.S. effort, have stuck their neck out to work for the U.S. under great threat during the past 20 years. It has not been easy in Kabul to work for American organizations. And so I started getting request after request after request. I asked one of our student workers to help out with this because it was just my personal connections was just blowing up. And I had an idea that maybe we could help more people who are having the same problem, to connect them with their former employers just to get this letter of support so they can apply.
And that was your idea. And tell me, even, I mean, my sense is that even if these desperate people get the letter from you, that's just one, I'm terrified that that's just one step in this bureaucratic, nightmarish maze that they're still going to have to try to get themselves through. Yes.
The U.S. government and the Biden administration couldn't have thought of a more bureaucratic, convoluted way to get people who have helped us out of this country. And I want to tell you, those scenes that you saw in the airport, one of the rules of this asylum process is that you cannot be in Afghanistan to apply for asylum. So it means those people who are at the airport were the people who are at greatest risk, who had to get out in order to apply. That's who was chasing after our airplanes. Those were our closest allies. And to me, that was such an act of betrayal.
What do you make of this this bollocksed up effort? I mean, I'm stunned by it. I really am stunned. I saw that somebody said, I think it was Fareed Zakaria said, look, there is no elegant way to lose a war. Well, yes, that is
hogwash. I mean, we could get our people. There are ways that this could have been managed so much better. Biden in his speech a couple of days ago, I thought was awfully disingenuous when he said that there weren't calls by Afghans to get out. Or he listened to the Afghan president who said not to issue such a program. I said, when was the last time we listened to the Afghan president? Right? I mean, he's been undermining the whole thing for many, many years. He was not someone who was working in the U.S. best interest. I just thought it was extremely disingenuous. And I said, please, President Biden, come look at my messages and my DMs from the past 6 months, especially since when the U.S. announced that it was the final withdrawal this spring. I think it was in April. This should have just begun right away. And the bureaucratic process in our immigration system is just shameful.
It's shameful. It is. So how many, do you have any sense of how many people you've been able to at least get this letter and help them in that way?
I don't know the exact number. It's moving so fast. And now we have more than 40 volunteers from all over the world who are helping us. We have well over 1,000 applicants, like people who we are helping right now. I don't know the exact number of the people who've gotten the letters. We need to follow up actually with many of them because our job is just to do the handoff. We do the handoff between the organization and the employers. And some of the employers are really stepping up. They're big contractors that have been working in Afghanistan for a long time. They've set up really nice websites that make it very, very easy. Some of them haven't. And I've been really surprised in sort of the democracy promotion world. Some of these NGOs who you'd think would be, very active. I've found a very difficult time getting. They just don't seem to have the bureaucracy, the systems in place to help these people as fast as they need to be. One issue that we've confronted is that not everybody who approaches us is eligible, and that's kind of heartbreaking. A lot of Afghan government employees who worked in the department, their Department of Defense, or who worked in the Ministry of Women's Affairs. They were Afghan government employees. They were not Afghan U.S. government employees. They didn't work on U.S. government projects. But I would argue that some of those people are at the greatest risk of retribution. And UN hasn't done anything for their staff. We're getting several queries from locals who worked on human rights and rule of law programs for the United Nations. The UN isn't a country. They're not evacuating their local staff. So those are some of the issues that we've come across. The U.S. actually has a generous program, very generous program, but is making it really, really hard on people who are in such duress to get information.
Now, we knew that this was, inevitable. We didn't know exactly how it was going to play out, but we were saying we're getting out and we were drawing down troops. Shouldn't we have been getting these people out at the same time months and months and months ago?
Yes. We've been withdrawing. We've been withdrawing for a long time from Afghanistan. I don't know, and I just so disappointed. Biden obviously, is not interested in Afghanistan. Really thinks it was a mistake. You could see a lot of anger, right. And to be fair, I actually agree with his decision to withdraw. I've gone back and forth on this, but I think the longer that we were there, we were not very effective. And I know I know there's been a lot of attention on, women and women's rights, and that is obviously very important. But I work on rural Afghanistan that's been devastated by war over the past 20 years, the past 40 years. And at this point, the government only controlled, prior to this announcement to withdraw, the government only controlled 30% uncontested. Right. So the gains that we saw happen so quickly, for those of us who follow Afghanistan, it was not, the fall of the capitals was surprising. The Taliban were very sophisticated, are exhibiting enormous sophistication in their messaging and in their ways to get these regions to fall. They've negotiated artfully. They have promised not to hurt people. For the most part, they did not harm soldiers. They said, surrender, go back to your village. They've captured former warlords who were opponents, captured them and let them go. So that. Do you think that is just happening now, or will this be a sort of new kind of Taliban? Do you think? Are you willing to risk believing that they will not retaliate and be vengeful? This is the $1 million question. If I knew the answer, I'd be running the world. But I think that there are some very promising signs. One of the signs that I see, and I was not one of those people, for the record, who said there's a new Taliban, there's a moderate Taliban. I was not one of those people at all. What I see, though, is a Taliban that understands the grievances of people. We see this in their messaging. Today I saw on Twitter, they're all over social media. They're using cell phones. They're not going to be able to censor things the way they did. Afghan society has changed so much. The state building effort was just a vast failure, from the humanitarian, development, civilian, democracy promotion side to the military side. I blame us for a lot of that. We created a lot of monsters in Afghanistan. We picked really bad people to support. And I was hollering about that for years. But Afghan society changed in a fundamental way, especially in the cities. And the Taliban are not going to be able to govern the way that they did 20 years ago. And their messaging seems right now to indicate that they understand that very well. Yes. They understand the grievances that people have. This morning, I saw a post on Twitter. The Taliban, they went to the equivalent of Duquesne Light. And they go to Duquesne Light and they're saying, we understand the problems with Duquesne Light. That some people who have a lot of money get electricity to their houses, and some people who don't have money don't get power and have to pay bribes. That's not going to happen anymore. That's a powerful message to a lot of people, because it means that they understand, like, the alienation. The reason this government fell was because people felt they had no government that really fought for them. It's not because they supported the Taliban. They are just tired and weary. These poor forces, on the front lines with no logistics, no support. This wasn't a technical question. This was a political question. They didn't have the heart to fight anymore for this, for a corrupt government. And so we'll see if they can deliver. It's a big, big issue right now. It's a big question. I'm trying not to see this ideologically. I see a lot of friends who are saying, the Taliban are evil. We can't support them. And I've seen a lot of the evil, right? I hear that. On the other hand, they are extending an olive branch. For now, are they real? I don't know. It's a risk to take, right? To legitimize them, of course. But on the other hand, Afghanistan's had 43 years of constant war. perhaps engagement could lead to some. Maybe they're not moderate. Maybe it could lead to some moderation. But the real risk the Taliban faces, I think, by their desire to moderate, is then they upset. They're more every party has extreme wings, right? We know that in the United States.
Oh,
so they have an extreme wing, right? That won't be happy to see this. They've got to balance that as well.
So we can assume that behind the scenes right now there is a lot of push and pull going on within the Taliban, right? Of how to govern now.
Oh, absolutely. And I was just on the phone this morning with a pretty senior, very well-known Afghan politician who's not allied with the current government, an important public figure. And, I get the sense from him that there's a lot of talk happening right now. And he said he's been talking to the Taliban, and he said that they were surprised. Everyone was surprised that Kabul fell the way that it did, as quickly as it did. They were caught off guard. The government was caught off guard. We were caught off guard. Everybody was caught off guard. And so now is a really critical moment, thinking through these issues, thinking about whether to engage or not. I think we should just take off our ideological blinders and think about the people of Afghanistan. Does it make sense to engage them? The U.S. government has frozen central bank assets. That is important because the former president, it just was reported that he ran off with $169 million in cash.
Ashraf Ghani showed up in the United Arab Emirates with $169 million. Yeah.
And we loved him.
Outrageous.
Ivy League educated, PhD in anthropology from Columbia University, World Bank. The U.S. loved it. The U.S. the U.S. loved him for years. They just glorified him and people in Washington of all administrations. And love for him really began blossom.
Well, what? So what? Are we that naive?
Yes.
Or
yes,
we are.
Yes, we were not good at this, and I think this is a lesson for us not to think about U.S. interventionism, restraint versus intervene, and what kind of foreign policy. We just to do this kind of work requires thinking and understanding the places that you're going. And if we're not good at it, we shouldn't do it.
Quite clearly, that's a lesson we've never learned, though, right? And Jennifer, I don't know. I've been around for a long time, and our arrogance and our hubris and our sense that, of course, we can overlay. Our cultural ignorance. It is mind-boggling. And yet we'll do it again. But
let's remember, though, the days after 9/11, right? The feelings that we had, and to be fair, that many people. I remember I was doing field research in 2007, 2008, and Afghans were so excited to have the U.S. military there. So excited. That was a different time, and things after 2008 went really, really bad. There's a number of reasons for that, but then I came back to the U.S. and my colleagues at campus would say, "Oh, you've gone to the land of the imperial power. The U.S. isn't imperial." I said, "No, the U.S. is popular. The U.S. The things that the U.S. is doing it resonates with a lot of people. I just think that we don't do it very well. We don't do it smartly. I don't know the words that I'm searching for." But there's so many misunderstandings of what Afghanistan was, and now it's just become, it's heartbreaking to see these scenes. Things seem to be calming down in Kabul. I'm very encouraged by what I see coming from the Taliban. We need to take advantage of that opportunity. Maybe it'll be easy. Maybe someone will say we're being naive now and having this, and someone else knew all along that we shouldn't have talked to them. But it is an opportunity. This friend I spoke to this morning says for the first time they're not hearing gunshots in Kabul. There's no fear of suicide bombing. That every province has had, most of the country right now is experiencing some kind of peace. That's unheard of for the past 40 years. So I'm hoping the Taliban can stay true to their word. We have good reasons to believe they will not be able to. And what happens then? So there's no easy answers to any of this at all. And anybody who has one doesn't know what they're talking about.
Can I ask you, as someone who, is having to interact with these terrified people there and who knows so many of these people there, can I ask I cannot imagine the emotional toll on you, because I know I can barely watch just the pictures without just feeling sick to my stomach. So, and I'm removed. To you, it's personal in so many ways. So how are you doing?
I just have to keep going. I realize the privilege that I have being able to sit here and go through my Twitter DMs and my Facebook TMs and try to respond to people. It's hard. I think we were all just shocked on Saturday watching the government fall Sunday morning. It's hard. It's very, very hard. The messages from very dear friends of mine saying that they don't want to leave their house, that they're afraid of being targeted. That's very real, and feeling a responsibility to them. And that's why, we set this up, is that we have a responsibility to these people who helped us. I have a responsibility to my friends who helped me, who taught me, who were my teachers, who continue to be my teachers. And it breaks my heart that the only thing I can do is send emails. Like, I want to get on a plane and go and get them. And I would.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
But it just feeling helplessness this is the way to respond to it. I'm tired. I've got 4 little kids at home. Thanks, Pittsburgh Public Schools. So,
oh dear,
that's a whole nother story. I've actually told my kids, what a mess. What a mess. And then what a mess. For the past year and a half. We're just exhausted, but this war has been exhausted. I can't imagine what my friends are going through, because they agreed to support this effort thinking that the U.S. would be there. Okay, maybe they knew the U.S. was going to withdraw, but they knew that their government would stay in place. At least Kabul would be safe, and that just crumbled so quickly. And there are scholars who look at this. This is not unique. We have this. You think about the collapse of the Berlin Wall. We call these cascades. And what this tells us is that everybody's lying to the public. They all know. They call it Private Truths, Public Lies. It's a great book on this kind of dynamic. And it means that this was just a charade. It was a charade, and everybody knew it. And it just took a little prick for everything to fall apart. And it doesn't mean that the people of Afghanistan,
Jennifer, I was just thinking the charade, though, was occurring in our country as well, from our government, with the same kind of public lies and private truths, right? I mean, for every Republican, Democratic administration, it didn't matter. We were being lied to.
Absolutely. And I would I would encourage everybody. There's a Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. If there's anybody who deserves a medal for this, it's his office. You could go to his website, download reports. In fact, he issued one yesterday about 20 years of lessons learned on Afghanistan reconstruction and basically diagnosed everything. He's been writing about, and this is a government official, and he got harangued by the aid community, by the military. I mean, you name it. And I saw problems on the development, the aid, the humanitarian side. In fact, I found the military to be much more willing to respond to problems and to adjust their strategy than many of the people I saw on the humanitarian and the development side of things, which really shocked me and was very disappointing.
Did some of these humanitarian efforts, the money that went, obviously a lot of money went into the wrong hands. This was a totally corrupt regime.
And corrupt, but also corrupt aid agencies. I'd go, even I was there. I was in Kabul last year, right when COVID hit. I was actually meeting with the mayors. I was asked to give a talk to the mayors of Afghanistan to talk about local governance reform. That's actually, I work on local governance, self-governance. The center I have works on these governance issues. The honor of my life, to be able to speak before the people that you study. And they all said, they talked about the problems with the Constitution. It's way too centralized. They wanted federalism, decentralization, and the president's controlling all the authority in his own hands. And they want to do more. And I just meet some of these aid agencies. They're spending. The problem is that we thought, okay, if we're giving all this money to the military, we also have to work on the civilian side as well. And the civilian side meant let's give huge amounts of money to develop the country. There was a lot of, pressure to see strong humanitarian results. But the result was that we put way too much money into the country, created our whole bureaucratic system in Washington is really broken in terms of how we deliver aid. We have these huge, NGOs and contracting systems that eat up a lot of money. Very, very little of that money actually gets to recipients. And then you have in Kabul, you have all these aid agencies who are sitting in these offices in these compounds, and they're not able to travel. And how on earth can you administer a $300 million program if you can't ever visit the village that you're giving money to? That's a recipe for disaster. And we knew that all along. The Special Inspector General's office has been writing about this for years. He's testified before Congress. We knew this, but we kept going.
As you're talking, I'm thinking I just saw something in the paper today about how if you want to help the poor people of Haiti, here's where you can give. You're not naming any names, but I mean, that would be some NGO, some humanitarian. Yeah. Are we throwing...
there are some very good organizations. Oftentimes those appeals don't go directly to people. They go and pay overhead for nonprofits. And not to say that the overhead isn't important. Just
who do you see as a good name? Can you name a few good ones?
I don't want to get into names. Okay. Yeah, because I don't want to exclude either. So, okay. But it is a very tricky business. There are some very good people out there doing work. And I think the best thing is to get aid, and this is directly into the hands of people. Give people cash. We don't need to teach people how to fish. They know how to fish. It's that simple. I think a lot of the programs, the humanitarian programs, could be quite patronizing to people. People have a lot of dignity, and one of the things that I saw in Afghanistan was in the areas that there were peace. There were some peaceful parts of the country. We don't read about them very often. But, the ability of these communities to engage in local self-governance, do all this really cool self-help, manage, local infrastructure and irrigation systems. You saw businesses thrive. You saw commerce thrive. You saw education thrive. And people gave up on the formal education system. So the number of private schools, private universities in Afghanistan was astronomical, because there's such a hunger for education and the need wasn't really being met. And so people just took things into their own hands, and they did so much. And I just want people to not walk away with this story that the people didn't want to fight. The Taliban won. They were exhausted, and they've had to put up a lot for themselves. That there's a lot of courage there, and not to see things in just such black and white terms. The situation with women is heartbreaking. It's complicated. It's really complicated. I'm trying to be hopeful about the future.
Jennifer, I thank you so much. And you've got more important things to do than talk to us. And our time is up. I cannot thank you enough for helping us in the time you've spent with us to see things in not so black and white a manner, which is always, of course, pretty much how our media portray what people see is such a sort of almost cartoon of reality and not often even reality. So I wish you all the best in the wonderful work you're doing, and I wish you a measure of internal peace as well.
Thank you. And I've been listening to you since I was a kid, you and Uncle Dougie. So I'm a huge fan. Yes, from back in the day.
You are kidding me.
No, I was the last guest on Uncle Dougie's show before he got fired, I think. Yes, just came back from Afghanistan, and I would write him letters when I was in Afghanistan. And I listened to you for years. So it's just a real pleasure to be here. It really means a lot.
God say that. Okay, that blows me away. Thank you. I am honored.
Yeah.
I am honored. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
All right, back to work. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Whoa. Wasn't expecting that. Jennifer Murtazashvili. You notice I just called her Jennifer after I first said it. Wow. All right. I think that was about as unvarnished a picture as we are likely to get from anybody. Wow. So thank you guys for that. I want to thank Zach for setting that up for us, and my best to her efforts. Okay, that's it, and stay dry. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.